What's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Box Score. Advanced stats from simple people. Adam Azer, Dan Schneier, and Jacob Gibbs is back.
There it is.
Is back. What'd you think about Gibbs last week? What'd you think about the Dan Schneier impression?
It was underwhelming.
No effort, no film study.
No, there was effort put in. There's not enough film study. I didn't have time. I was trying to study players for the show, Adam, that people want to learn about.
You put more effort into the hype than the impression. You were like,
yeah, that's how my life goes. I'm a big hype man. Yeah, Adam, you know me. I'm a hype man.
Gibbs impression. Just wait. Maybe you'll get my Jacob. And he's like, I think it's time for my first Jacob Gibbs impression.
And it was horrible. The second one wasn't as bad as the first. I will say that. I went back and watched the tape of my own impressions. I should have watched the tape of Jacob's impressions. I went back to the tape of my own impressions. Second one wasn't as bad as the first. I did a couple of I got stats you find interesting. Or curious what you guys. I did a curious what you guys think. The curious what you guys think is
that was good.
100% without any tape study.
That's because I told you to say that. I was like, he always asked that. And then,
I kind of feel like you did. I kind of feel like you did give me that one, to be honest. But
way to go.
I've never been an impressionist.
Way to go. Welcome back, Jacob.
Yeah, good to be back. It was too much expectations. Like I got tweets about it and I was like excited. I hadn't seen the show yet. Then I got in there. I was like, he's just talking quiet. Like, this isn't even an impression. Like
not really.
It was like 10 seconds of Dan talking quiet, and like that was it. He gave up on it immediately.
Yeah, I couldn't.
It's the longest stretch of Dan talking quiet in his life.
Yeah, that's true.
We may have a Dan Schneier impression on the show today. We made. You got excited for the game tonight, guys?
Actually, yeah.
Oh,
finally, a really good standalone game that I'm excited for.
Now, I don't know Jacob that well. I've only known him for a few years, but I don't think he's ever once thought the Chiefs were going to lose. So what do you think's going to happen today?
But that's fair. Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. I don't think I'd ever once think that the Chiefs are going to lose either. If I was a Chiefs fan,
it's been nice. If you would have known me before the Patrick Mahomes era, it would have been much more depressing Chiefs fan experience. But yeah, I think we're going to win again. I feel pretty good about this. I'm excited to see what they've got coming out of the bye. I hope we see a lot more Rashee Rice. I think this is a really good matchup for him. So definitely excited for this one.
I have a nice feeling as well about the Chiefs tonight, and I've backed it with my pocketbook.
Okay.
Pocketbook. It's just a pocketbook like I've ever owned a pocketbook. Anyone in 2023 owns pocketbook.
Your clutch.
Yeah, the clutch. But yeah, I just think that mostly from my film study, I've seen that, and this was the really interesting thing. Steve Spagnuolo, a defensive coordinator who I love, near and dear to my heart as the Giants defensive coordinator for the Super Bowls, has done things differently on film this year than I've really ever seen in his career as DC. He's mixed up the coverages in the back end in a way that's really exciting, I think, for the Chiefs. Their defense is the best I've ever seen it with Spags running it, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor tonight. Spags is going to do things to confuse Jalen Hurts and to slow down the Eagles' offense, and that will be the X factor, be my guess.
All right, let's go from what's hopefully going to be the most exciting game to one of the most boring teams in the Denver Broncos. They're just so boring. They do nothing fun. They good for them. They're 5-5. They keep winning.
Want a stat to back this up real quick?
Yeah, please.
Russell Wilson is number 2 in the NFL behind only Daniel Jones in percentage of throws short of the sticks, and the sticks mean the first down marker.
And what's his ADOT? How does he rank in that?
Gotta be low based on that.
Yeah, they're just boring. They are what they are. They want to run the ball, play defense, and throw touchdowns to Cortland Sutton. And for the most part, they do that. But Jacob, what were your takeaways from pretty exciting game, I guess? 21-20 Denver. What were your fantasy takeaways?
So we saw the Broncos play from behind, which we haven't seen very much over the past month. And Javonte Williams' role shrunk a little bit, 46% snap rate, 11% route participation. Javonte Williams only ran 4 routes on Sunday Night Football. Both Jaleel McLaughlin and Samaje Perine got more involved as pass catchers. So just, I guess, pump the brakes a little bit on Javonte. We've been getting really excited about him, but this is within his range of outcomes at any time. We don't think the Broncos are necessarily that good of a team, even though they've been getting some wins. And so at any point, they can fall behind and really kind of game script him out of fantasy relevancy. Nothing else really stood out from this game.
Yeah. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I was just going to say my main point that I had written down in my film notes was just that Javonte angle, because I had hyped Javonte and it was looking like it was working the last 2 weeks. Really saw such a good involvement, but now we know he can be game scripted into spots that aren't necessarily good for his fantasy value and good for his fantasy production. And it's not necessarily just the games where they go behind early, big early, right? Like this game you would think would be okay game script. They went behind early, but it wasn't until like multiple possessions where they're really playing catch up. So it's interesting. It might be a sign of things to change. I don't know. It's hard to say. My other takeaway was on the other side of the ball. I just, I watched this passing game, Adam and Jacob, and the timing of it, the rhythm of it, it doesn't look to me like when Justin Jefferson comes back, he's going to be the same fantasy asset he has been and will be. And I think that to some people might sound obvious because you lose Kirk Cousins and you go down to Josh Dobbs. But I think we could be looking at a massive, massive difference in what the expectation is for Jefferson in his first game back from injury, and then throughout the rest of the season versus what you're going to get on a consistent basis as a fantasy manager rest of the season.
Well, so just for Javonte real quick, I mean, they only had the ball for about 25 minutes. They didn't run a lot of plays. So it was not just a bad game script, but also just, the fact that they just didn't possess the ball enough. Right. That was bad. Javonte's still clearly at worst a number 2 running back, going to be in the starting discussion every week. Now for Jefferson, like I like him a lot better than I like Chase. I feel confident in saying that. I'm more confident in Jefferson. Okay, not rest of season, and for 2 reasons. One, I don't know if he's playing next week, and then they have a bye. So Chase has him at least just in availability. But fantasy playoffs wise, or just like on a per game basis, if they're both 100% healthy, because Chase is dealing with his own injury, I have more confidence in the passing game for the Vikings than I do for the Bengals. And I'm impressed with Dobbs, and I don't want to judge them too harshly because the Broncos have been really, really, really good against the pass in the last 5 or 6 games. And we're talking Dobbs, who was like God's gift to fantasy football, scoring less than 20 fantasy points. Josh Allen having a bad game. Patrick Mahomes with 2 subpar games. It's not like they're just beating up on nobodies here. They're obviously a tough matchup now. So yeah, like I don't have the same expectations for Jefferson, but my expectations are definitely higher than they were immediately after the Cousins injury. Addison, on the other hand, I think is, about to go be like Jacoby Myers. It's possible he's just droppable, but don't drop him yet. See how it plays out. And again, don't know that Jefferson's playing next week, but I have very low expectations for Addison once Jefferson's back.
I think that's fair.
And in terms of the running backs, Alexander Mattison was still the passing downs guy. He was the 3rd down back. He ran 19 routes compared to 7 for Chandler, but Chandler had 4 catches and Mattison had 2 targets and only 1 catch for -2 yards. Chandler, you see 10 for 73 in the box score. He had a 31-yard run on a fake punt. He had 9 carries. Other than that, Alexander Mattison had 18. And the Broncos just can't tackle. They're just a really good matchup for running backs. There was a stat that they showed during the game. They have a really, really high missed tackle rate, and it was terrible last night. And that's pretty much it. I think you're right. There's not a ton of fantasy takeaways from this game. So, unless you want to talk about Sutton, but I think you're just praying for that touchdown.
Yeah. Touchdown or bust.
Yeah. All right. So Sportsline, you want some great information? You can get the Beyond the Box Score article on Sportsline. Also get content from Dave, from Jamie, from Heath, and of course from Jacob. And you can use a couple of promo codes. You can use the code Gibbs for, right? Yeah, Gibbs. Not Gibbs. It's Gibbs.
Gibbs.
For $1 for your first month on Sportsline. Then it's only $9.99 after that. Or if you want the annual subscription, 60% off an annual plan. What a perfect time to get this because it's also gambling advice. It's not fantasy exclusive. It's also gambling. We have got college football, NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball. This is the most amazing sports time of year and amazing advice for you at Sportsline. Use the promo code FOLLOW to get 60% off. You can go to sportsline.com/join. And the code is FOLLOW for 60% off an annual plan. Wow, what a deal. It really is amazing. All right, Stafford, he looks okay. Geno Smith going to be questionable for Thursday's game against the Niners. Cleveland signed Joe Flacco. And if you look at what Flacco did with the Jets last year, he started 4 games. You will see a lot of passing yards. Those first 3 games, he was 309, 307, 285, but he threw the ball about 50 times a game. In fact, maybe even more than that. With the Jets, he averaged 5.5 yards per attempt. How does that measure up? Well, Zach Wilson's averaging 5.4 yards per attempt. You guys think Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns? It won't be this upcoming week. They've already said it'll be Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But do you think Flacco will eventually be the starting quarterback for this team?
I do. Yes, I think he will be. I think what it comes down to here is the Browns are looking for someone to find some semblance of a rhythm and timing in the pass game. PJ Walker couldn't find timing in the pass game. Deshaun Watson could toward the end. He helped lead that drive to win the game against the Ravens with a timing and rhythm-based passing offense and game plan for that last final drive. It was not a lot of throws downfield. It was doing things that require anticipation from the quarterback, throwing with anticipation, getting the ball out on time and in rhythm. I don't think Dorian Thompson-Robinson can do that, at least not at this point in his career. Can Joe Flacco do that? I don't know. I'm not sold on that either, but I know that he has at different points in his career, including even at times last year with the Jets. So I think he will eventually be starting for this offense. And I think when he does, it'll be a really good sign for Amari Cooper because they're going to really change the entire offense from a schematic standpoint. They'll go heavy personnel. They'll go under center more often. They'll be doing play action, 7 5-step drops, design shot plays for players like Cooper and like Eli Moore, who will benefit from a quarterback who can go 5-7 steps, drops, hit his back foot, and actually rip a football in there with velocity, something that these other quarterbacks also can't do that are currently on the roster.
It's not really a big needle mover for me.
No, I think it's still not a needle mover. Just an NFL arm is now on the roster.
Right, they have a lot of injuries on their offensive line, and Joe Flacco can't move. So I think it's a bad combo. And it may help Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper could have been an absolute league winner, a real steal if Deshaun Watson had stayed healthy. He's been so good with Watson. I don't see us going back to those days with Amari Cooper, that kind of production. I think you're going to be just crossing your fingers that he does well. Let's see what else. The Falcons have named Desmond Ridder their starter. The Patriots have not decided on a starting quarterback yet. They are at the Giants. The Falcons get the Saints in week 12. Tim Boyle replaced Zach Wilson, but we haven't heard anything from Saleh yet about who is going to be the quarterback this week against Miami, where I think it would be a shock if Ken Walker plays on Thursday. That's just me, but it's a legit injury, and apparently that's what Pete Carroll says when a guy is likely to miss time and they're playing Thursday, so wouldn't expect Walker. Devon Achane does not need knee surgery. That's good. I don't really have much more information. I just saw that came across that he doesn't need surgery. We'll see if he plays on Friday against the Jets. Waiting to hear about Aaron Jones. Waiting to hear about Deontay Foreman. Najee Harris, I mentioned this on yesterday's show. He's fed up with the offense. Cooper Kupp, not a high ankle sprain. I think it's just a regular ankle sprain for Cooper Kupp.
Did you guys get a chance to watch any of Kenny Pickett yesterday?
Saw the clip you posted. Oh, breaking news.
Devon Achane.
It's unbelievable. This guy can't get it right.
On purpose, obviously.
Tim Boyle will start at quarterback for the Jets.
Whoa. They finally did it. They finally benched Zach Wilson. It is.
When I was watching that game, I just felt like a mutiny was about to happen.
Yeah. I understand that. I also understand that when it comes to Kenny Pickett, who we briefly talked about before this, I mean, Kenny Pickett should not be starting in the NFL right now. Maybe the option on the bench isn't better with Mitch Trubisky, but it isn't crazy how bad Kenny Pickett looks on tape. It is crazy how bad Kenny Pickett's arm talent looks. It's just unbelievable to me. Like, I'm not sold that Tommy DeVito is a worse quarterback than Kenny Pickett, even though I know he is deep down in my heart. I am not sold that that Kenny Pickett offers that much more to an NFL offense than Tommy DeVito does, because neither has NFL arm talent that's that great.
Well, I mean, that's just you supporting your Jersey guy.
I don't think so. Did you watch Kenny Pickett?
Like I said, I watched the clip you sent of every throw he made past the line of scrimmage. It was bad. But again, I know he's not good, but let's not pick on him against arguably the best defense in football.
Sure, but he threw 10 touchdown passes last year. Tommy DeVito has more touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett this year, and he's only played 3 games. Just think about that stat.
He has more career games with multiple touchdown passes, right?
And he has more career games with multiple touchdown passes, Tommy DeVito, than Kenny Pickett.
That's wild.
And it's
big defensive
quarterback play is around the NFL right now. It's just wild.
Big defensive injury. Talanoa Hufanga for the Niners. There's very good star safety for his ACL. He's out for the year. And Cleveland safety Rodney McLeod is out for the season as well. So those are big ones. And the Bills got very banged up. Teron Johnson's in the concussion protocol. Dane Jackson also had a head injury. I assume he's in the concussion protocol. And Taylor Rapp is the one who was carted off yesterday. Tests were negative. Hopefully he's back pretty soon. But that's three defensive backs who got hurt. And they're facing the Eagles on the road in Week 12. We'll take a break. When we come back, we've got advanced stats, snap counts, those types of things. Some film review on Justin Fields. Our big topics today: Ravens passing game, Tony Pollard expectations, how confident are we in Josh Jacobs and Garrett Wilson and Deebo Samuel, and which handcuffs should you be rostering? Hope you were rostering Zach Charbonnet. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
It's never too soon for college hoops. It's the Emerald Coast Classic on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. All right, advanced stats, snap counts, Jacob Gibbs. Let's go. And if you'd like to do this as Dan Schneier, I'd have no problem with that.
I'd love to see it.
All right, so I wanted to start with the Detroit running backs. Did you get a chance to watch these guys, Dan?
Wait, hold on. Is this the Dan Schneier impression or no?
No.
I thought it was.
Let me know when it kicks in, because that was pretty close. That was pretty close.
Yeah, he had like a much deeper voice, like a little faster. I thot he was going Schneier on us.
Did you get a chance to watch these? Or that might be a Gibbs. Actually, I don't know if that's your Gibbs. I've heard it. So
I'm a bit sick right now, so my voice is all over the place.
You can keep this impression for later if you don't feel confident in it.
Oh, I'm ready to do the impression whenever.
Use it later.
Okay. So I've got like splits on the backfield for Detroit, and just wanted to bring up, they basically went rotation where it was, one drive for Montgomery, one for Gibbs, but we did see at the end of the game when they needed the goal line touchdown, they did sub Gibbs out after the timeout and put Montgomery in. And I think it makes sense that we're going to see Montgomery get that short yardage roll back. But yeah, in this game at least, and last week, we saw a lot more inside the 10 and red zone snaps for Jahmyr Gibbs. 70% of the inside the 10 snaps went to Gibbs, 30% to Montgomery, 3 inside the 10 rushes for Gibbs, 2 for Montgomery. Did you watch these guys?
I didn't get a chance to watch these guys. I went through Charbonnet tape, Justin Fields tape, and a little bit of, and also Tony Pollard tape, but I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch these guys.
Yeah, neither did I, but I'll add that Gibbs now 2 games in a row where he has had a 1 or a 2 yard touchdown. I think he had a 2 yard touchdown in this game. He also caught 6 catches for 59 yards. They only ran 59 plays, so there were only 2 snaps I think inside the 5, and they each got 1. But as I mentioned last week, Gibbs was supposed to come off the field for one of his touchdowns, and Montgomery let him stay in. So I definitely feel like Montgomery will have the edge there, but I don't think it's going to be 100% basically like it was before.
I think so. So like both top 12 guys is kind of how I'm viewing them. Is that where you're at?
I mean, certainly Gibbs, because they're throwing the ball to him. Montgomery is touchdown dependent, but he scores in every game, literally every game. And we already saw it with Jamal Williams last year. So if you don't like buying this, I know people don't like to buy into touchdowns, but if there's one guy that I think I'd buy into touchdowns that's not Christian McCaffrey, I think it's Montgomery.
I think people don't like to buy into touchdowns year over year, Adam, but within a year, I think it's fair to buy into touchdowns, because by that point, you know which offenses are 1, creating yards before contact on the ground, 2, getting in the red zone often, and 3, being successful in running the football in the red zone. And the Detroit Lions are definitely one of those teams.
Yeah, for sure. The next guy I want to talk about is Brian Robinson. So without Antonio Gibson, we saw him really see his role expanded. Brian Robinson saw 6 targets last week. That was his first career game with more than 4 targets. He followed it up with 9 in week 11. He has 180 yards after the catch over the past 2 games. His snap rate was way up. The other thing that stood out to me was he had 10 avoided tackles. That was the highest of any player in week 11. Robinson has 18 avoided tackles over his past 2 games. Only had 22 avoided tackles in the 8 games prior. So he is playing much better. And I think that the receiving stuff is just kind of random. The long plays especially, but it is cool to like see him, get targets and be trusted with the route running responsibilities. So more of kind of a long-term note than anything there. Did you guys have anything on Robinson?
No, I thought, last week when he did this against the Seahawks and he had this 5 or 6 catches, 6 for 119 and a touchdown, I noted that the Seahawks give up a lot of production of running backs in the passing game. The Giants, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. They've been great for a year and a half now of limiting running backs in the passing game, and he had 7 catches for 58 yards. So I thought that was very encouraging in that respect. It was a tough matchup, and he came through. However, I also said this to Jamie and Dave and Heath yesterday. Going into this week, he had only had 3 top 12 finishes all season. And if Gibson is back, I don't think he's a must-start running back. I'd start Montgomery and Gibbs over him most weeks.
All weeks, I would say, for those two.
Me too.
Yeah,
he's
for sure. Yeah, Montgomery.
I do think he is one of those players that's much better on tape than the fans realize, though, with Brian Robinson. He was one of the players we went over and Beyond the Box for like week 3 or week 4. And I was like, damn, I was that impressed with his tape. It's just a matter of what Adam says is probably, in my opinion, the big takeaway here from a fantasy football standpoint, which is, with Gibson back in the mix, do we trust him? Do we trust him in the games that aren't as, favorable from a game script standpoint? Watching was in the game yesterday.
All right.
He just did the alien thing that I was doing a few weeks.
That was weird. Dan,
we just randomly get portals on this podcast that take. I don't know what the sound is.
What?
Yeah.
Wait,
you were talking. You were like, "Yeah, he's really good on tape." Basically,
no idea why. But yeah, 78% snap rate. He'd never been above 60% in a game prior to this week.
Wow.
And I just think he's looked way better this year than he did last year, and that might have had something to do with getting shot in the leg before the season started, or just being year 2, whatever. But pretty encouraging year for Robinson. Next guy, Jameson Williams. Just quick note: season high 66% route participation for Jameson Williams. Back-to-back season highs the past 2 weeks. So he's trending in the right direction. I don't know if it's going to matter for this year, but at least it's something. Obviously caught the touchdown as well. Tank Dell is averaging 2.4 yards per route run, which is so absurd. So like rookie rates that are comparable, we got Chris Olave at 2.4 last year, Jamar Chase at 2.5. It's really nuts. He's 10th at wide receiver in yards per route run on the year. We got Tyreek, Brandon Ayuk is averaging 3.4 yards per route run. And so like the list of players who have averaged over 3 yards per route run in a season over the last 10 years is like, it's like Julio Jones 3 times, Cooper Kupp, and Tyreek Hill. And that's it. I'm pretty sure.
Damn.
Ayuk is at 3.4.
Ayuk, I like that. That's a really good name.
Can I take a moment to do something that Jacob's never done on this podcast, because he's a much better man than me, and Adam I don't think has ever done either, but it is me taking a moment to pat myself on the back, because Adam asked me to come up with 5 league winners rest of season last podcast that you weren't on, Jacob, and the first person I picked was Tank Dell. Was it not, Adam?
Yeah, I mean,
it was. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was. It was very obvious thing to give. I didn't even bother.
It was not a very obvious thing to give. We're talking about a player who before the season was barely drafted on rosters. Very obvious thing to give. Hey, you want to hear obvious? Obvious is just.
I think I gave Brock Purdy.
Did you give Brock Purdy? I don't think you.
Yeah, I still have my list. I'll go check.
You can give Brock Purdy. I mean, what does it say about me for that I needed to have self, to bring that up and pat my own self on the back, though? That's the real question we should be asking ourselves. Let's get back to the analysis.
It says that your co-host. Oh no, I said Kyler Murray. It says that your co-host doesn't give you enough credit. I said Achane, Pittman, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, and Kyler Murray. So
pretty good.
We'll see. It wasn't great last week, but
yeah. So 10th at yard per route run for Tank Dell. He's ahead of Jamar Chase, ahead of Jalen Waddle, ahead of a prime Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen at quarterback. Wow. Like, it's honestly insane. Calvin Ridley, 30% target per route run rate this week, 110 air yards. With Zay Jones in the lineup, he has had over 100 yards every game. I think that there might be some signal to that. I don't know if that's totally random. I think Zay runs a lot more of those kind of big boy routes on the outside that Ridley's got stuck on, and they were able to move Ridley around a little bit more with Jones back in the mix. And so obviously exciting stuff from him this week. Another thing I would point out on Ridley.
I would say one thing on that, Jacob, before you move past it. There is something to it. It's not just, there is actually a science behind it. And I didn't get a chance to watch the tape this week. What are you laughing at?
Science. Sorry.
It's not science, but there is whatever you said.
Signal.
Science. Put on my Bill Nye hat, and then there's with Ridley back with Zay Jones back on the field, Ridley was running different routes, and that's the big factor here. They expanded his route tree and they asked him to do different things because Zay Jones can run some of the routes that Calvin Ridley was running before when Zay wasn't on the field that were mostly designed as clear outs or designed to take attention away from the defense to open up something else. So Calvin Ridley in 3 games with Zay Jones this season has 8 catches for 101 yards and a TD, 7 catches for 122, and then 7 catches for 102 and 2 TDs. And then in the 7 games without Zay Jones on the field, Ridley has under 15 fantasy points, 1 total touchdown, and just 1 game over 40 receiving yards. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it has a lot more to do with the different kinds of routes that are run when they have a Zay Jones on the field to kind of take away that defensive attention if they need him.
Just one thing, though. Zay Jones did play week 2. There were 4 games where Zay Jones played.
Okay, I might have missed one, yeah.
And Calvin Ridley had no catches on 6 targets against the Chiefs. So,
Sure.
yeah, I think maybe – oh, no, Zay Jones had no catches on 6 targets. Calvin Ridley also had a bad game, though. He had 2 catches for 32 yards on 8 targets against the Chiefs. I think Ridley's been really a matchup guy.
Yep, that's what I wanted to – That's what I wanted to bring up is I highlighted this in last week's Beyond the Box Score. I really like this spot for him. The Titans allow a ton of targets to the wide receiver position and really has had a really rough stretch where he's only faced 3 teams all year that are in the top half of target rate to the out wide position, wide receiver. Every other team has been in the bottom half or even like in the bottom like 8. And so I think that's really, really influenced things. Obviously you would like for him to not be matchup dependent. But he's had one of the toughest matchups you could have for somebody who's a like truly like strictly out wide receiver. He did play in the slot a little bit more this week. I think it was double, like up from 12% to 24%. They ran a couple screens to him. That was the first time they've done that since week 1.
Yeah. All right. Good. They were really embarrassed by the Niners. You saw the quotes after the game. That it was a very humbling game for them, and they changed things up a little bit. And hopefully, it's a sign of things to come after I drop Trevor Lawrence in a league. So, anything else?
The Giants first in situation neutral pass rate.
That was crazy to say.
Can we get some time? Yeah, no, we're like, I don't know. We just expected to run everything to run through Saquon, but Tommy DeVito. Can we get some Tommy DeVito talk?
No, we can get Washington Commanders talk. Washington Commanders have the worst pass defense in the NFL. I don't know if it's close. They are an absolute layup. They're a slam dunk layup. Let me see their schedule. They're so bad against the pass that anything, I said this yesterday, anything that a quarterback does against the Washington Commanders shouldn't count. Dallas this week. Oh, don't worry. They don't have any good quarterbacks coming up. They have Dallas, Miami, and the Chargers. Oh, no, the Rams. Sorry. Dallas, Miami, Rams, Jets, Niners. Brock Purdy, if you make it to the championship with Brock Purdy, congratulations. You don't even have to play week 17. Just accept your prize money because he's going to score 40 points on the Commanders in week 17. All right. That's my spiel there.
Well, I'll give a little bit on it. I do think it was interesting to watch, and I do agree a lot of it was what you just said, Adam. The matchup against the Commanders, really good scheme from Mike Kafka and Brian Dable. Great play calls to get wide receivers wide open. Daniel Bellinger in the red zone, for example. But part of it is a quarterback's willingness to throw beyond the sticks, to try tight window throws, and make throws down the field. And Tommy DeVito did that in this game more often than we've seen most Giants quarterbacks do it over the last 2 seasons. Giants were dead last in explosive pass plays last season. Daniel Jones led the NFL in throws short of the sticks this year from a percentage standpoint. It looked a little different, the offense. It certainly did. That doesn't mean it was going to continue. I think Bill Belichick, for example, is going to give Tommy DeVito a really hard time next week coming off the bye week, and things are going to look pretty ugly. But it's interesting to see that the offense still has the capability of making plays down the field in the pass game.
It's funny. I saw Dan tweeted something. I felt the same exact way. That was it. Dan Orlovsky that kind of went on the Pat McAfee show and said that Bill Belichick's already got like his next team lined up. Was it Orlovsky who said that?
Yes.
And he's always been very fond of the Giants. He speaks. He's used to be their defensive coordinator. He won a Super Bowl there, or 2. He won 2 there, and I don't even think I want him.
Yeah, that's what I said in the tweet. I'm like, I didn't think there would ever become a point in my life where the rumors started, because I've heard these Belichick to Giants rumors before. Like the past 2 or 3 coaching searches, I've heard them, and this will probably be the first time in my life that I've ever been like. Because those times I was like, yes, let's get him. We got the greatest coach of all time. Everything's going to change. Now I'm like, probably give trade compensation, first of all, to the Patriots, which I don't want to do. I don't like trading draft picks for coaches. That to me is an absurd thing that I don't think the Broncos should have done, first of all. But second of all, like, do we want a 70-year-old Belichick coming in to rerun the Giants and like get them through a new quarterback? Like, I don't know.
All right, Jacob, you want to wrap it up?
That's all I've got. Do you guys watch Bob Burgers? I keep getting people telling me to like quote Bob's Burgers. And I sound like some character off Bob's
You
Burgers.
sound like Tina. I see
Tina?
that line.
you?
Tina has the funniest voice. Tina's the funniest character.
Would you believe it, Adam? I don't know Bob's Burgers.
Oh, you love Bob's Burgers. It's
Really?
great voice.
Can I tell you that I'm not? Is it the same guy who does Family Guy? Because I don't like the Family Guy humor.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay.
All right, I got a few notes here. James Conner once again did not play a third down snap, so that stinks. Rondale Moore, I don't know what happened, why it was Greg Dortch over Rondale Moore. Did he?
Me either.
I was thinking, did he play out wide more and Greg Dortch took the slot role? No, he had basically the same rates, Rondale Moore of slot and out wide. One thing that was different, he had an 8.6 yard average route depth, which is more than double what Rondale Moore usually runs.
Which is why he only had one target.
Right, a deep ball touchdown.
He never gets targets when he runs downfield routes.
So that maybe Michael Wilson comes back and Greg Dortch doesn't play and Rondale Moore runs his 4-yard routes and he gets 8 targets and 6 catches and gives you a PPR floor. But I didn't quite figure out what happened there. Just saw the route depth. Deontay Foreman had 4 carries in the first quarter. Khalil Herbert had 1. At halftime, it was 5-4 Foreman. And then he left early in the third quarter. But he had also, I think, left earlier in the game and came back. And he came into the game with, I think, an ankle injury. So I think what I'm trying to say is I feel like Foreman was ahead of Khalil Herbert in the first half. Puka Nacua ended up with 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown, but it really was a struggle. And in the fourth quarter, he had 6 of those 7 targets and he had 54 yards. This is all without Cooper Kupp. But I don't know how you guys feel, but I said this yesterday. I said this to Chris, I think, on FFT at 5. I don't have any confidence in the Rams offense right now. I think they look like crap. I think their line is bad. I don't think Stafford's got it. Like I was confident in them at the beginning of the year, but I don't feel that way. If Kupp is out, I guess I feel confident in Nacua. But if Kupp is back, I don't feel confident that Matthew Stafford is going to support both of them. I don't think we're going to have 2 must-start wide receivers. And I also don't know that Kupp is going to be the better one.
Yeah, I share those concerns as well. What are you laughing at, Jacob?
I just saw Dan looks like a young George Costanza. I don't want to keep derailing the podcast with the chat, but I saw an ad, I think McDonald's ad of Jason Alexander when he was super young, and I kind of see it, Dan. I'm sorry.
Come on. This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. The last 3 impressions the people have said the chat I've looked like have been George Costanza, who's it's no way to take that as anything but an absolute non-competent.
No, you do. You did. First of all, he was a good-looking guy.
Talking about.
He was a good-looking guy in his youth.
Short and stumpy. And no point in my life have I ever been considered short and stumpy. And I do consider myself somewhat short at 5'8", but I've never been stumpy at any point in my life. Okay, I will not be compared to a stumpy human being.
He's not always.
So every Jew looks alike. Is that what we're getting at?
Oh, no.
With dark hair looks alike. No, I'm kidding, Jacob. I'm kidding. But the last 3 guys I've got have been all Seth Rogen. You look like Seth Rogen. Oh, yesterday it was Seth Rogen. Oh, guess what? You look like what's the other guy? The fat guy from that group. I forget the name.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. Oh, you look like Jonah Hill. Now it's George Costanza.
Look at this picture. Do you think you look like this guy? I think you look like him.
I don't look that much like this guy. I don't look that much like this guy. No, I don't.
He is a nice looking guy. This is a compliment. You're going crazy here. This is a compliment. You should say thank you. Thank you.
You kind of sound like George, honestly, right now.
Well, I know I can at times act and sound like George. There's no denying that. I have a lot of Larry David in me, but I don't want to look like it. I don't care about if I act and sound. I don't.
All right, Dan. You look like an old Larry David. Okay.
It's actually somehow more of a compliment than George Costanza because Larry David's in great shape.
Young Jason Alexander is a good looking guy. All right. What else do I got here? Oh, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is averaging 9.7 yards per attempt, I believe. And
I was going to make a point before all that and then got derailed.
We're not interested. 9.7 yards per attempt. He is QB. I have all these notes on Brock Purdy. He's QB 8 per game.
Love him.
And QB 8 overall. And he had that 3-game stretch where Trent Williams was hurt for 2 of them and Deebo Samuel was hurt for basically all 3. But other than that, he's just been lights out. But can he keep this up? He is 25th in pass attempts. He is first in completion percentage. He's completing 70% of his passes. First in touchdown rate. First in yards per attempt. 1.2 more yards per attempt than number 2, Tua Tagovailoa. First in yards per completion. First in passer rating. First in QBR. And first in yak per completion. 14th in air yards per pass attempt. But the yards per attempt, 9.7, according to ESPN, second most yards per attempt through 10 games in NFL history. Wow. So, I'm loving what we're seeing from Ayuk. I love what we're seeing from Purdy. I love what we're seeing from Kittle. Not so much Debo. And they keep this up. They're performing at such a high rate. And I know the Niners always do. They're always basically the most efficient team among the leaders in yards per attempt. But Jacob, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's hard to ever quantify the Niners and what's realistic or what is a clear regression candidate, just because their offense produces so well. But yeah, given that historical context, I think we probably have to expect things to come down. But also, if you just throw to Brandon Ayuk every play, you're going to be the best quarterback, I think.
He's so good.
And he's
Brandon
become
Ayuk is so freaking good at football.
And Purdy has become one of the better intermediate to deep ball throwers in football. Looking at the numbers again today, I mentioned it yesterday. This was a weakness for him. On pass attempts of 15 or more air yards, he is completing 67.7% of his passes this year, compared to 43% last year. He has the highest completion percentage on passes of 15 or more air yards, 20 or more air yards, 25 or more air yards, second best in pass attempts of 30 or more air yards. And when I watch the Niners, I know they are going to regress. They can't be this good on 26 pass attempts. It feels like it's Brock Purdy's team now. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but
yeah, I think it's fair to say it's Brock Purdy's team and pass first offense. But I will also say that I remain distracted by looking over and watching Jacob Gibbs just giggling, and I'm just looking at the chat, and I know that those are chats about me. Thankfully, we see an Adam one here, but you know what? Dan's getting angry. Dan's getting frustrated.
It's the winter of Dan. It's the fall of Dan. The summer
of Dan.
All right. You want to give us some Justin Fields film review, Dan Schneier?
Yeah, sure. So watch Justin Fields for Beyond the Box Score. Obviously, that's where we are now. Wanted to see what the game was like. And I'll say this about watching Justin Fields. I wasn't as impressed as I thought I might be watching him. So I'll start with the first 2 drives where it really was it was a very specific game plan the Bears brought out. On the first 2 drives, they had, and I wrote these down, 2 boot action plays. So this is something the Giants ran a lot in 2022 to find a way to create offense with Daniel Jones at quarterback. And essentially just a play action where you boot your quarterback out and try to hit a tight end who's blocking and then leaking. It works for a little while until defenses adjust. There were also 4 design runs on the first 9 plays of this game for Justin Fields, 4 design quarterback runs. This is a great thing for fantasy. I don't know how long it could last. There was a good sign. So a lot of what I just saw in this game was just quick game, passing game, boot action, not a lot of, deeper progressions, not a lot of high-low reads with things downfield. There was a good example of some processing improvement from Justin Fields. For those of you who do watch on the All-22 game coaches film, if you bought NFL Game Pass, or you have it anyway, 12:58 quarter 1, take a look at that play. Fields comes off the play side read fast when it's not there, and it is just quick game. So it's nothing too complicated, but it's still good to see him come off the play side read so fast because it wasn't there. And that was the solution he thought he'd find pre-snap. And that's what you want to see from these quarterbacks. When they have a solution in their head pre-snap, will that be open post-snap? And when they look and it's not open post-snap, you want to see them come off of that fast. You don't want to see them drive their eyes into that and sit on it for a while, which is something I think that Fields has struggled with at times in his career. He came back through the progression, found Kmet for an 11-yard gain. That was a good sign for sure. But it did feel like whenever they were put behind the sticks in the offense, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 15, there was just no solution. There just hasn't been a solution. He had a really nice throw on in the second quarter, 7:52, rolling to his opposite throwing shoulder left, flipped his hips, ripped one into Mooney on a crosser. 11:54 quarter 3, though, he missed a wide open DJ Moore in his progression. Adam, this is the one you texted us about before the podcast. Scrambled back and he found him at the end. What are you laughing at?
No, because I was looking at this. I watched the film too, and he's got DJ Moore wide open for a huge play. I don't know why he didn't throw the ball. He ended up scrambling and finding him for a much shorter play.
Sure.
But yeah, I saw him miss a few open receivers. But it's funny to do film review on him because ultimately I'm really not sure how much it matters. He ran for like 100 yards.
Sure.
Right.
And the game plan, from a fantasy standpoint, the game plan is run him, design quarterback runs more than I've seen from any quarterback tape I've watched in a long time this year. They really, because you'll get scrambles from these running quarterbacks, which is fine. That's, what they decide to do based on the progression of a play, a pass play, a design pass play. But these were design runs for the quarterback that Fields got a lot of. And then, of course, I want to bring up 4:48 quarter 3, the best play of the game from Justin Fields, the touchdown to DJ Moore. And you got to give him credit for that. He stepped up through the pocket, used his eyes. This was the key thing. He used his eyes immediately when he catches the snap, his eyes and his helmet. Watch this. This is what you want to do if you want to watch the film. Watch where the helmet stripe goes for these quarterbacks. The helmet stripe goes left. And what that did was hold the safety for long enough, just long enough, that when he did step up in the pocket and flip his helmet back right, he was able to hit DJ Moore on kind of like a skinny post type of pattern where Moore doesn't have the safety now over the top to kind of break up the pass, hit the receiver, or get involved. So there were good moments from Justin Fields for sure. I don't feel like I saw anything too game changing from him. I think the game plan was very specific to what I believe his limitations are as a processor, as a passer. And that's not even as a passer, more of just a processor from a mental standpoint as a quarterback. I still want to see more from Justin Fields personally.
I'm curious if you think there's any specific matchup-based reason why he ran so much. Justin Fields, 3 of his 4 games with 104 or more rushing yards in his career have come against Detroit.
Yeah.
He had
I'll
130.
tell you why.
Yeah.
I just think it's the style of defense that they play against, or that Detroit Lions play, especially against the Bears. It's very man coverage heavy, which is going to lead to more openings for a quarterback to run. It's also the way they play pre-snap. I think with the way they align their defense, it leads. That's why I think we saw some, because that what I just said will probably be more of a reaction to like scrambles from the quarterback, like plays that were designed as passes, but you can then decide to run. But they were also design runs, and I think that has to do with how Detroit align pre-snap. So I think it's a good matchup for him from a rushing standpoint, based on how aggressive. And if you're looking for the games where Justin Fields, you want to see a lot of rushing, look for the games against the teams that play more man-heavy defense.
For what it's worth, they only use man 25% of the time this week.
So you got me there. I didn't even know that.
in the past, I just looked at it. In the past, they have been one of those.
That was according to True. This is sometimes I think, that's good stuff. I just think sometimes some of the concepts that are considered zone to me look like man on film, but it's hard. And I think in general though, that's a good stat by, because it's a good sign that he was able to do it against zone.
The other thing I would bring up from this
Did you
game,
just put up Jason Alexander picture?
Do you feel like you're looking into the future right now?
Now that was mean. That was mean, Adam. That was just straight up mean. He goes, "You think I'm looking into the future?" He puts up a picture of a bald-headed George Costanza, stumpy as ever. And I really apologize, Jason Alexander. Look, this. I didn't want this to turn into me bashing how Jason Alexander looks. I love Jason Alexander as a human being. He's part of some of the funniest moments of my life. I've seen every episode of Seinfeld multiple times, but no one wants to be compared to Jason Alexander / Costanza.
Stop. Now you're being mean. And I told you, he's a very nice looking guy. All right. That's our Justin. We got to get going here, guys. We still have our 4 big topics to get to. We'll take a break. The chat thinks that Jacob looks like Jason Segel. I could definitely see that. And we will be right. It's like we got the whole Judd Apatow crew.
Go ahead.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
A game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. Saturday, December 9th on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
All right, let's talk about our 4 big topics here. The first one is from Alex. How to handle the Ravens passing game without Mark Andrews. Anybody? I'm pretty into Odell Beckham. I'm not going to lie. 35% rostered, 35%. In the last 5 weeks, he has, let me see. I got their last 5 games. He has 27 targets, same as Mark Andrews. And he's got 4 end zone targets, same as Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers has 1 end zone target in that stretch. Beckham looks pretty damn good out there, I think.
I think so.
I think he's a big waiver wire priority, but what do you guys think about the Ravens passing game without Andrews?
I think you nailed this one, Adam. I think Odell Beckham is the first one I want to put up there, and he's looked really good on tape these last few weeks, and he's maybe getting healthier. That could be part of it. I don't know. Came off a major injury, got injuries in the middle of the year, but he wins the way he won. He wins on the vertical plane. Ball hasn't gotten there. He wins on the immediate with the slants, that he can just separate from defensive backs after slants like we've seen this season. So I am excited about Odell Beckham Jr. for sure. I would also put Isaiah Likely in there, and I'd love to hear if Jacob has any stats on what Likely did last year without Mark Andrews, which I think knowing Jacob, he might just have those loaded up or just, has those in his research as well. But yeah, I'm excited for those two, I would say, OBJ and Isaiah Likely.
So I'll start by saying that this year, without Andrews on the field, Odell Beckham has a 26% target per route rate, highest on the team, and 2.99 yards per route run. Obviously, it's a small sample size, 67 routes, and a lot of that came last week. But he's been super efficient on a per route basis. He hasn't played as much lately. Is he dealing with something? I feel like he was a little bit banged up like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right?
Who, Beckham?
Yeah.
He's seemingly healthier now, it seems like.
So if just looking at like route participation and playing time, Rashad Bateman is actually the guy who's been trending upward, 75% route participation each of the past 2 games. He's not been productive at all. He's averaging 1 yard per route run on the year, which is abysmal. So I make what you will of that. But yeah, Beckham, I'm pulling up his, he had a 36% snap rate this week, 55% route participation. So they're getting him out there for the passing plays. That's when Mark Andrews was off the field. 49% route participation this week. So still not great. At the top, he's been at around 65, 67% this year. And in week 1, he was out there for 97% of the routes. So if we see him get back to that type of a role, I think Odell is the guy. He's averaging almost 2 yards per route run on the year, which is like actually pretty fantasy relevant. Isaiah Likely ran a lot of empty routes last week, and that's what we saw in week 1 without Mark Andrews as well. Last year, when Andrews was off the field, Likely was really good. Isaiah Likely without Mark Andrews last year, 92 routes run, 26% target per route run rate, which is higher than Beckham's that I cited earlier, 2.2 yards per route run. That's really, really good. That's like with a full role, a top 12 fantasy tight end. But yeah, he has just been invisible this year.
They have different players now. I mean, they had nobody last year.
Yeah.
They didn't Marquise Brown last year. Right? They had nothing when Andrews got hurt. And they also didn't have Lamar Jackson for some of that.
Yep,
as I recall. But like, I guess it's easy to say we should pick up Beckham. Do you think he's better than Zay Flowers going forward?
No. Flowers per route data is almost identical. He's not been nearly as efficient, but his target per route run rate is almost identical to Beckham's without Andrews on the field. We saw in week 1 they really ran the offense through Flowers. It wouldn't surprise me if he's like a top 24 receiver the rest of the way.
I hope so. I wonder what it means for Jackson. I mean, I know he came through last week, but he's definitely struggled without Andrews in the past.
For sure.
And Andrews, the biggest role that someone's going to have to fill now is red zone, green zone, end zone, because that is where Mark Andrews really made his mark. He just had so many more red zone targets than everybody on the field, on the team. So we'll see who steps up there. Based on the data, Beckham would be the guy. The red zone targets are 14 for Andrews, 10 for Flowers, and 8 for Beckham, but sort of trending toward Beckham. The end zone targets, Beckham actually leads the team with 7 end zone targets. Mark Andrews has 6. Zay Flowers has 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what changes there.
Can I do a quick, it'll be very quick, a quick Dan Schneider complaint zone?
Sure.
All right. Well, on Wednesday of last week, I woke up to an offer in my most important league, my home league that's gone 17 years, auction, all the good stuff, Superflex. A desperate manager, desperate running back situation, also buying high, offered me Mark Andrews for Kareem Hunt and Trey McBride. I accepted the trade. I was excited about the trade. I envisioned weeks 14, 15, 16, 17 in the playoffs. Mark Andrews, 2 touchdown game. Mark Andrews, touchdown. I said to myself, wow, I gave up Kareem Hunt, who's losing his role pretty much, and with a really bad quarterback now, and Trey McBride selling at an absolute high, and I got Mark Andrews. It's amazing. And then I watched Mark Andrews get injured for the season in his first game on my team. Because that's a Dan Schneider complaint zone, because I wasn't really about that trade. I thought it was an amazing trade by me.
It wasn't that quick, and now you're recapping it. You said it was. And you know what? Somebody said that I look like one of the puppets from this TV show Thunderbirds from the 1960s.
Oh my god! Which one?
Dude, I think
Oh
it
my
looks
god.
like a freak in the front.
You
Yeah.
think you look like which one in the front?
The big freak right in the front.
Yeah.
I think you look more like the guy to the
To the left, they
yeah.
look very similar.
well bushier eyebrows. You have that bushy eyebrow thing going.
I do. There's some people like that, but most people don't. All right. This one's from Mikey. Just wants to know how we feel about Tony Pollard going forward. Pollard, 12 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. 4 catches for 19 yards. The exciting, I guess if you want to call it advanced metric, is that he's had the 2 highest avoid rates of the season in his last 2 games by far. 50% in week 11, 26.7% in week 10. Those are his only 2 weeks with an avoid rate above 13%. So maybe he's getting a little bit of his mojo back. Maybe. I don't know. I watched his carries, and I still do not see an explosive player. And, I don't know if we mentioned this a lot, but he's averaging 4.0 yards per carry this year. Before this season, he was averaging 5.1. But Tony Pollard is also averaging just 6.3 yards per catch this year. Yep. And before this season, he was averaging 8.3. So I just think that everything tells me he's still not that explosive player. But how much do you guys trust him going forward? Washington, Seattle, Philadelphia up next.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the tape on Pollard, one of the 3 people I got a chance to watch tape on, and I think Adam, we can overcomplicate things. I have examples, but in the honor of keeping this a little shorter, you nailed it. There's lack of burst, lack of elusiveness. It doesn't look like I'm watching the same player. It's hard for me to be excited about him moving forward when I consider 1, he's not the same player from an elusiveness and burst standpoint, and 2, doesn't really have the role people thought he was going to have here. He's not the only back in this offense, and he may not even be the most explosive back at this point in this offense, at least this year, whatever's going on with their health, his health, and the health of the entire offense. So it's hard for me to get excited about him moving forward. I feel like he's more of a volume dependent border RB1, RB2, if you get lucky with touchdowns or not, but don't expect those long. Last year, we got long touchdowns out of Tony Pollard. That's the thing. Yeah. We got nice long touchdowns. We're not getting those this year.
Yeah. He had 2 carries of more than 20 yards in this game against Carolina, arguably the worst run defense.
And one was blocked up so well. Like he did nothing on the first one.
But those are 2 of 5 for the year. And his longest run, I think, is 31 yards. So, Jacob, how about you? I'll tell you what, would you rather have Pollard or James Conner? We have our own concerns about.
Ooh.
Pollard. I think the point you brought up on James Conner losing his passing down work is really important.
Yeah. All right, from Be More Deplorable. We definitely need a confidence-o-meter right now. So I picked 3 guys that people might be losing confidence in. And Jacob, you can put them on the meter, 0 to 10. How much confidence do you have in them? 0 is none. 10 is full confidence. Josh Jacobs.
I'm going with 7. I saw a poll on Twitter, I think, where people were comparing, like, would you rather have Josh Jacobs or Tony Pollard? And it was pretty much even, and that shocked me. I feel like the role is intact for Jacobs. It's really good. They're going to run the offense through him. That's what we've seen with Antonio Pierce as coach. Aiden McConnell is dump-off king to him as well.
But that hasn't been the case.
Lately, he's been pushing him downfield more, yeah.
The last 3 weeks, what does he have? 3 targets in his last 3 weeks? And that, in the week 4, O'Connell threw to him. He had 8 catches, but since then, I think he has 1 catch with Aiden O'Connell. So that's the concern here. Is like they beat the Giants and the Jets. He ran 27 times. Then how's he going to be in a game where they trail? Is he going to get his passing roll back? No. And he had 14 carries and 1 catch. So they've got the Chiefs twice. They've got Minnesota, which is a great run defense. They have the Chargers, who actually don't have a bad run defense, but they struggle in the passing game against running backs. So that's the concern here with Jacobs is if there's a bad game script and he's still not getting any targets. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. You know what you mean.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Really weird coming out of your mouth.
I think the targets are kind of random week to week. I wouldn't read too much into what we've seen these last few games.
Yeah. All right, I hope you're right. All right, Dan.
Do I get a chance? Confidence meter?
I'm just trying to confidence meter. Let's go to next. Deebo Samuel.
I'm still at a 6.5.
Okay.
6.6. 6.6.
Would you like to tell us a story about how you traded for Deebo Samuel just before his bad game?
No, but I'm still pissed about that Andrews thing.
That sucks, dude. I hear that really sucks. It was a good trade on your part. Yeah. Yeah, Deebo's interesting. Like, just here are the targets in like there have been 5 games this year where everyone's been healthy for the 49ers. But there was one game where Debo got 0 targets and he came into the game injured. So I did Debo Samuel the liberty of eliminating that game. Yeah, totally. So in the other 4 games where there are no excuses for Debo Samuel and everyone's healthy, Brandon Ayuk has 24 targets, George Kittle has 23, Christian McCaffrey has 23, and Debo Samuel has 18. Problem is 7 of those 18 came in week 1. Since then, it's 3, 4, and 4. He definitely has been the 4th option for Purdy. Is that going to continue? I don't know. So Dan, you said you're like a 6.5 confidence in Debo?
6.6 to be exact.
Do you happen to have Debo's matchups from that 4-game split, Adam? Like who he's playing against?
Yes, weeks 1, 5, 10, and 11. So that would be Pittsburgh in week 1.
2 really man-heavy coverage schemes, and then 2 zone-heavy coverage schemes. The last 2 would be concerning to me. He's not seeing a lot of targets against Jacksonville and Tampa Bay, who play a lot of zone.
I mean, Purdy's throwing 26 times a game right now, and he's just connecting on these big plays to Kittle and Ayuk. Yep. But still, if you get even 30 pass attempts from Purdy, that's a lot. So I think the bigger question is, do we have confidence that it's going to continue this way, where it's going to be Ayuk and Kittle and Debo third fiddle, if to make a nice rhyme there, or is it going to be more random going forward?
I think he's clearly behind Ayuk. I think it'll probably be pretty random between the other 2.
I would agree with that. Ayuk ahead and then random between the other 2.
Confidence meter for Garrett Wilson.
4, 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3.5.
3.753.
I like to know the decimals are a good play. You need to use decimals in life. I hate when people go, oh, it's a 3 of 10. No, go 3.3, go 3.8. Give us a real specific read on the situation. You know what I mean?
So he just had two catches for 9 yards on 8 targets, but the 4 games before that, Garrett Wilson had 12 to 14 targets, 7 to 9 catches, and 80 to 100 yards in all 4 games. So I don't want to overreact too much from one terrible game, and they are changing their quarterback, and I don't think that's going to be good for him, though.
That was a good stat, Adam. But you know what you need to get as part of your sound machine that you have? You need to get, for when I have those types of stupid comments, you need to get the Billy Madison. At no point in your rambling that and that, I'm sure that's not just for me. I'm sure we can look throughout FFT and the entire
everyone on this
big 3, and we might see some moments where we can bring that one in. But go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So do you think upgrade or downgrade with Tim Boyle?
Same.
Downgrade, yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard to say downgrade, but not upgrade.
It's definitely not an upgrade.
I feel like this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to Zach Wilson.
Maybe because everyone sees how much worse it could be, type of thing.
Yeah, and it's not all his fault. I mean, the line stinks. They desperately need a number 2 receiver, and another terrible game running from Breece Hall. They have one receiver, no running game, and a bad offense.
Though, yes, I agree with all that. To be fair, they built this. They made this bed. Now sleep in it. They signed Alan Lazard to the dumbest contract I've ever seen. I said at the time, it makes no sense. He has no skills that make any sense. He couldn't separate. Remember when I told you this, Adam, and you fought back on me for this? Is that why you're smiling?
No, I don't remember this at all. I'm saying the Jets deserve this, but I'm saying Zach Wilson's in a pretty bad situation too.
Okay. Well, maybe you shouldn't have signed your wide receiver who is a UDFA, has no defining traits whatsoever, can't create separation, can't catch 50-50 balls, doesn't have speed, but played with Aaron Rodgers for a few years.
Let's hear from the audience.
Maybe should have let Elijah Moore play.
Dan sits on a phone book when he drives. Somebody said in the comments. That's incredible. That's freaking incredible. I'm not that short. I'm 5'8".
Dan's not old enough to know what a phone book is. All right. This is from Kel. Kel says, I want to talk handcuffs, philosophy on handcuffs during the postseason weeks, and which ones are worth rostering and which ones would be wastes of roster spots.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you still have your stash ranks, Jacob?
No, I didn't come prepped with stash ranks. I'm scrambling right now. I think I can come up with some. Have you guys seen the rest of season schedule for Zach Charbonnet?
No. Good or bad?
It is not good. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we got San Francisco at Dallas, at San Francisco, Philadelphia, at Tennessee. That's insane in terms of run defenses. That's like the best.
But like I said to twice last night, I said on FFT and then on FFT and 5. The difference between him and Ken Walker, there are many differences, but a major one is that Charbonnet is the passing downs guy no matter what.
Yeah.
So he could still catch like 5 passes.
He got a lot of volume in this game.
You know, it's
I
I
agree
said
with
I'd rather have Charbonnet without Walker than Walker with Charbonnet.
Ooh.
Walker
I would.
with Charbonnet.
I think it's close because Walker still has the big play potential, which we saw a couple weeks ago with
I
the
think he
short
does. I think Charbonnet does too, not to the same degree. Like few people can really take it to the house. Like
I don't think that's his game, Charbonnet, and I loved his tape, but that was never really his game.
No, it is bad. But all right, so who are we stashing right now? I think I had a league where I know Wan'Dale Robinson had he didn't really have that good of a game, but I had him on a roster. I was like, forget this. I dropped him for Elijah Mitchell. These are the types of moves you should be making. We're pretty much done with bye. We have 6 teams on a bye next week or week 13. So we're not done with buys. But if you feel like you're good, there's dead space on your roster. Let's stash some handcuffs. So obviously Elijah Mitchell,
Rico
Charbonnet,
Dowdle,
AJ Dillon,
Rico Dowdle in the mix.
Dowdle for sure.
Yep.
Josh Kelly, look, he was really bad, but at least he was an option for you, so you could stash him.
Tajay Spears.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tajay Spears for sure. That's a good call. Let's see if there's any others that we're missing here.
Jaleel McLaughlin, they got more involved this week than they had.
Yeah,
in the past couple weeks.
Maybe.
He didn't play much, McLaughlin, but it doesn't matter. This is just a handcuff situation. I think if Javonte goes out, I don't think P. Ryan's role increases all that much. I think McLaughlin really benefits from that. It's hard to say with the Dolphins at this point.
Yeah,
I think Jeff Wilson is someone you probably want to get, but Savon Ahmed is obviously ahead of Jeff Wilson. Right. But Ahmed also got hurt. Latavius Murray
looking through it. That's what I was saying. There aren't too many more looking through it. I think Latavius is okay. I guess as a pick there, I would be okay with calling him a stash or.
How about Amari DiMercado?
No, not for me.
Oh, I got one. Jacksonville, Dearness Johnson.
Really? Okay. But I'm going to actually bring another one out. I'm going to bring out Kenneth Gainwell because I'm not a huge Gainwell fan, but we know the history with DeAndre Swift, and he's taken a lot of touches this year. So I want to throw him out there.
Yeah, I like Dearness. Dude, it's as bad as it could be for Tank Bigsby, man.
Yeah.
They're done, it feels like.
This was definitely not. This was one of my worst calls, I think, of the year, Tank Bigsby. And I've had some good calls, but I've had some bad calls too, and this was a bad one.
This is a disgusting one, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be a decent guy to grab.
Jacob.
I really just like as somebody who watches the Chiefs, man, they can't quit. I don't know, like they keep giving
this guy.
Yeah, and like I really do think
I'm not 100% certain he's going to be in the NFL next year, Clyde Edwards. Yeah, no, kidding on that. I mean, someone will find a role for him on the back end of a roster, but man, he's not an NFL talent.
Tyler Algier is someone you could. I mean, he's 68% roster, but you should stash him if you want just someone to stash.
Chris Rodriguez, I think Washington likes him. He played well this week.
All right, once we start talking about Chris Rodriguez, I think that means your favorite Costanza moment.
What'd you say?
What's your favorite Costanza moment?
Oh, what's my favorite Costanza moment? So many great ones. If I had to pick my favorite Costanza moment, God, I'm thinking about all my favorite ones now, and I'm not sure like which one I want to pick.
You are such a fake fan.
I mean, I can talk
about
any.
So many I can think of. I mean,
the jerk store's up there for me. Jerk store, whole team with
banger, and you can't even think of like.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think of the best one. I'm putting them all in my head. Jerk store's up there for me, but nothing beats for me the idea of him looking like angry while he's working at his desk, or looking like he's in a bad mood to pretend like you're actually working hard. It's just so epically good. So I'm gonna give it to that one. The whole idea of like when he's at his desk, he looks all like, and then like, oh wow, Costanza's really grinding the midnight oil.
I love when he gets the toupee. That whole scene with Jason Alexander. Jerry's like, had a little chat with George the other day. He goes, "You didn't." George goes, "I did." It's like it's two simple words, and he delivers so like condescendingly. I did. Like my favorite. I'm not a huge Seinfeld guy, but that was that might be my favorite.
I'm actually more of a Curb guy than a Seinfeld guy. I've seen Curb a lot more times than I've seen Seinfeld.
My family celebrates Festivus every year.
Do they really?
Yeah.
I was gonna wish Dan a happy Festivus.
So I watched that episode every year.
Jacob, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
We got family here. We're all getting together, hanging out, doing Black Friday, that kind of stuff.
Excellent. Dan, how about you? I feel like Dan has a huge Thanksgiving. Got all the cousins, the aunts and uncles come over.
Yeah, no. We usually actually used to do it at my parents' house, but lately we've been doing it down South Jersey because a few of my family moved down there, so it makes more sense. So I'm going down to my aunt's house.
Excellent.
But you
All
know
right,
what's funny, Adam
What?
and Jacob? Every year we have basically for decades at this point do a family two-hand touch football game.
Wow.
But we've had to consider retiring it because there've been somehow, despite it being two-hand touch, there've been injuries.
Yep.
Injuries happening in games, including one time where my uncle went too hard for a pass and we were playing and it probably shouldn't have been playing because it was a little slippery out there and like cracked his head open and my aunt was just
my God.
but it was fine. Like I say cracked his head open. I mean, just like he had bleeding from his head but it wasn't that bad. It sounds horrible. It wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough. And then my aunt was furious with us and everything. And then next year we didn't play. And then the year after we just went right back to the mix and we just started playing again, despite like clear and obvious evidence that this is not a good idea and should not be done any longer.
I'll suggest something for your family, Dan, on the same bleeding head note. What my family does, which doesn't involve any potential for injury, is we play Halo and we play Grand Theft Auto every Thanksgiving. Yeah, we get like a group of like 8 or 10 guys, mostly just DJing while the girls go do like Black Friday stuff.
That's awesome.
All right, that's great. Yeah. All right, guys. I hope you all I hope the two of you have an amazing Thanksgiving. Dan, I'll speak to you on Friday with the mailbag. Jacob next Monday with Beyond the Box Score. And Jacob, I'm not going to make you do it now, an hour and 5 minutes in, but next week you owe us your Dan impression.
Yeah, seriously.
I've got it. It's good. It's actually I was going to do a film review of Dan as Dan.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. But yeah, we didn't have time for it today.
All right. All right. See ya, everybody. Have a great day. And I'm sure you'll be listening to us between now and then. But if not, happy Thanksgiving and happy Fast.